Imagine you are strapped inside a metal capsule, 250 miles above Earth, staring out a small window at the blackest black you have ever seen. Behind you, your entire species. Every war, every ocean, every person you have ever loved, reduced to a pale blue smear in the distance. In front of you, a dead world. Gray, airless, silent for 4 billion years, and you are about to land on it. Not in a simulation, not in training, for real. And the terrifying truth that nobody in the press conference will say out loud is this: nobody has fully tested what you are about to step into. The lander beneath your feet has never touched the moon. The suit on your body has never been exposed to actual space vacuum. The fuel transfer keeping you alive was invented 6 months ago and tested exactly once. You are not a pioneer. You are a test subject. Welcome to Artemis 3. From the outside, it looks like triumph. The crowds cheer, the rockets ignite. The headlines scream humanity's glorious return to the moon, 50 years in the making, billions of dollars spent, the greatest technological collaboration in human history, finally coming to life. And for about 11 minutes, as you punch through the atmosphere on top of 8.8 million pounds of thrust, it genuinely feels like victory. But here's the problem. This mission is not a victory lap. It is a live experiment conducted in one of the most hostile environments the universe has ever produced. And the list of things that could go wrong doesn't just fill a page. It fills an entire classified NASA risk document that the public will never fully see. Let's talk about what's actually inside it. Before a single astronaut gets anywhere near the moon, something has to happen that has never been done in the history of human spaceflight. 2 spacecraft, massive, frozen, hurtling through orbital velocity at 17,000 miles per hour, have to find each other in the void, dock with millimeter precision, and transfer. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of supercooled propellant through a pipe. In space. For the first time. Ever. SpaceX needs a second Starship to act as a flying gas station. Blue Origin needs a separate propellant transport vehicle. These machines have to launch, survive, navigate, and connect, all before a single human boards the lander. Because without that fuel, the math doesn't work. Without refueling, the lander reaches the moon with just enough propellant to land. Not enough to come back. You land, and you stay. But it gets worse. Cryogenic propellant, the liquid oxygen and liquid methane inside these tanks, boils. Slowly, constantly, inevitably. Every hour in space, the lander is bleeding fuel into the vacuum, venting pressure to prevent an explosion. The longer the transfer takes, the less margin there is. And if the docking mechanism fails, if the fuel transfer valve sticks, if the pressure differential cracks a seal, the lander becomes a monument. And you never leave Earth. Assume the refueling works. Assume you dock. Assume you float through the hatch into the lander and your boots hit the floor and everything is humming and green on all the screens. Now someone hands you a spacesuit. The Axiom Space lunar suit, the Axiom U, is a marvel of engineering. It was designed to give moonwalkers more mobility, more flexibility, more visibility than anything Armstrong or Aldrin ever wore. It has been tested underwater, in vacuum chambers, in neutral buoyancy pools that simulate weightlessness, but it has never been worn in actual space by a human being during an actual mission until Artemis 3. Here's what that means. The suit seals against vacuum using layered pressure garments and airtight zippers engineered to tolerances tighter than a human hair. If one seal is slightly misaligned, if one zipper tooth is slightly worn, the pressure difference between inside the suit and the void outside is 14.7 pounds per square inch across every square inch of your body. Your blood would begin to boil in under 2 minutes. Not metaphorically, literally. The dissolved gases in your bloodstream would bubble outward as the pressure surrounding your cells simply ceased to exist. You would lose consciousness in 15 seconds. You would be dead in less than 2 minutes. And this is where things change, because the Artemis 3 crew will be testing these suits for the first time in the actual vacuum of space, floating in the airlock of the lander, exposed for a planned spacewalk. Evaluation. This is not a simulation. This is the first real test, meaning the astronauts on Artemis 3 are the test. But let's say the suits work. Let's say refueling works, the docking works, the life support hums beautifully for 3 weeks in low Earth orbit. On the next Artemis mission, the real landing happens. And that is when you come face to face with something that looks peaceful and gray from your window, but is in reality one of the most lethally hostile surfaces in the known. Universe. The moon has no atmosphere. That sentence sounds simple. It is not simple. It means there is no protection. None. Zero. From anything. During lunar daytime, the surface temperature climbs to 260 degrees Fahrenheit. In the shadows, particularly near the South Pole where NASA is targeting, it plunges to negative 280 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes within meters of each other. The same footstep that plants your boot in sunlight puts your shadow in temperatures colder than the surface of Pluto. Your suit has to survive both simultaneously. But that's not even the worst part. The moon is being bombarded, constantly, silently, by micrometeorites. Tiny fragments of rock and metal traveling at 40,000 miles per hour, invisible against the black sky, with no atmosphere to slow them down and no warning system to detect them. A particle the size of a grain of sand at that velocity carries the kinetic energy of a rifle bullet, and there are millions of them crossing the lunar surface every single day. You cannot hear them coming, you cannot see them, you simply stand on the surface and statistically hope that none of them find you. Here is the danger that terrifies NASA scientists more than almost anything else, more than equipment failure, more than surface hazards, more than docking errors. Radiation. Beyond Earth's magnetic field, the protection disappears. The Van Allen belts, those invisible shields of magnetism wrapping our planet, end. And beyond them lies a constant flood of galactic cosmic rays and solar particle events that pass through metal, through fabric, through flesh, without slowing down. You cannot feel radiation. You cannot see it or smell it. You will be absorbing a dose equivalent to a chest X-ray every single day simply by existing in deep space. And if the sun decides to release a solar particle event, a burst of high-energy protons from a solar flare, during your mission, the dose can spike to lethal levels within hours. The only protection is mass, shielding yourself behind the densest part of the lander. A small, cramped shelter you would have perhaps 30 minutes of warning to reach. There is no cure for acute radiation syndrome in space. There is no hospital. There is no evacuation. You sit in your metal shelter, and you wait, and you hope the sun finishes screaming before your body starts shutting down, and yet they are going. That is the part that should stop you cold, not the danger, not the engineering. The fact that human beings looked at every single one of these threats, the radiation, the micrometeorites, the boiling suits, the untested fuel transfer, the temperature swings, that would kill an unprotected person in seconds, and said, yes, we will go anyway. Because here is what Artemis 3 really is beneath the headlines and the press conferences and the glossy NASA graphics. It is humanity's oldest and most reckless instinct made physical. The same instinct that put people in wooden boats pointed at the horizon, the same instinct that sent the first pilots into skies nobody had mapped, We are small. We are fragile. We are made of water and carbon and electrical signals, biological machines that malfunction catastrophically at the slightest provocation. We evolved for a thin strip of temperate climate on one specific planet, and we have the audacity, the breathtaking, terrifying audacity, to point ourselves at a dead world 240.00 miles away and call it destiny. The universe is not cruel. It does not hate us. It simply does not know we exist. It has no temperature comfortable enough for our skin, no silence gentle enough for our ears, no void forgiving enough for our bodies. We were never meant to be out there. And we are going anyway. That is what Artemis 3 is really about.